We first encounter Lou Bookman, an elderly gentleman outside a large building in a downtown area. He's a pitchman, not very successfully selling his trinkets from a suitcase to the people in the town. On the steps behind him is a man that's watching his selling technique and taking notes. We then show Lou Bookman coming back to a small tenement flat, surrounded by the neighborhood children he adores. He'll hand out a couple of the toys to the children and remind them that the ice cream party is right after supper. Lou then goes into his apartment and is met by a man already inside. That man is the same one that was downtown. He chats with Lou about his time. One of the children comes into Lou's apartment with a broken toy. Lou fixes it and tells the little girl to be polite and say goodbye to the man. She asks, "What man?" This confuses Lou. The little girl leaves, and Lou finds out that the man is Mr. Death. And the only people that he can be seen by are people who will be going with him. Lou finally realizes that he is to go with him at precisely midnight. Lou does find out there are three ways to get out of this. Number one, hardship cases where a loved one would suffer if you left. Number two, priority cases in which someone is on the verge of a major discovery. And third, unfinished business of a major nature. Lou jumps on this because he always wanted to make a pitch so big it would be one for the angels. Begrudgingly, Mr. Death accepts this. Unfortunately, since Lou has worked his way out, Mr. Death must take someone else. So the little girl ends up running in front of a truck and gets fatally hit. Mr. Death now has his person at midnight. Lou finds out he has only one option left to save the girl. He must make his greatest pitch, a pitch for the angels. That evening, Lou gives his pitch to Mr. Death, starting at 20 minutes before midnight. Mr. Death gets more and more involved in the pitch until he hears the bells ring out midnight. Mr. Death has missed out on getting the girl to go with him, and Lou happily goes along with Mr. Death up there. Ed Wynn. Isaiah Edwin Leopold, born November 9, 1886, died June 19, 1966. Better known as Ed Wynn, was an American actor and comedian. He began his career in vaudeville and in 1903 and was known for his perfect fool comedy character. His pioneering radio show of the 1930s, his performances in classic Disney films such as Alice in Wonderland and Mary Poppins, and later career as a dramatic actor, which continued in the 1960s. Wynn's variety show, 1949 to 1950, The Ed Wynn Show, won a Peabody Award and an Emmy Award. Late in his career, he began alternating his comedic work with acclaimed dramatic performances, earning nominations for a Golden Globe and a BAFTA Award for The Great Man and the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in The Diary of Anne Frank. Wynn began his career in vaudeville in 1903 and was a star of the Ziegfeld Follies starting in 1914. During the Follies of 1915, W.C. Fields allegedly caught Wynn mugging for the audience under the table during Fields' pool room routine and knocked Wynn unconscious with his cue. Wynn wrote, directed, and produced many Broadway shows in subsequent decades and was known for his silly costumes and props, as well as his giggly, wavering voice he developed in the 1921 musical review, The Perfect Fool. Wynn became very active in the Lambs Club in 1919. In the early 1930s, Wynn hosted the radio show The Fire Chief, heard in North America on Tuesday nights, sponsored by Texaco Gasoline. Like many former vaudeville performers who turned to radio in the same decade, the stage-trained Wynn insisted on playing for a live studio audience, doing each program as an actual stage show using visual bits to augment his written material. And in his case, wearing a colorful costume with a red fireman's helmet. Wynn usually bounced his gag off announcer straight man Graham McNamee, Wynn's customary opening, "Tonight, Graham, the show is gonna be different," becoming one of the most familiar taglines of its time. A sample joke, "Graham, my uncle just bought a new second-hand car. He calls it Baby. I don't know, it won't go anyplace without a rattle." Wynn reprised his fire chief radio character in two films, Follow the Leader in 1930 and The Chief in 1933. Near the height of his radio fame in 1933, he founded his own short-lived radio network, the Amalgamated Broadcasting System, which lasted only 5 weeks, nearly destroying the comedian. According to radio historian Elizabeth MacLeod, the failed venture left Wynn deeply in debt, divorced, and finally suffering a nervous breakdown. Wynn was offered the title role of the Wizard in MGM's 1939 screen adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, but turned it down, as did his Ziegfeld contemporary W.C. Fields. The part went to Frank Morgan. Wynn first appeared on television in July 7, 1936, in a brief ad-lib spot with Graham McNamee during an NBC experimental television broadcast. In the 1949-50 season, Wynn hosted The Ed Wynn Show, one of the first network comedy variety television shows on CBS, and won both a Peabody Award and an Emmy Award. Buster Keaton, Carmen Miranda, Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, Hattie McDaniel, and the Three Stooges all made guest appearances with Wynn. This was the first CBS variety television show to originate from Los Angeles, which was seen live on the West Coast, but filmed via kinetoscope for distribution to the Midwestern United States and the Eastern United States, as the national coaxial cable had yet to be completed. Wynn was also a rotating host of NBC's Four-Star Review from 1950 to 1952. After the end of Wynn's third television series, The Ed Wynn Show, a short-lived situation comedy on NBC from 58 to 59, his son, actor Keenan Wynn, encouraged him to make a career change rather than retire. The comedian reluctantly began a career as a dramatic actor in television and films. The father and son appeared in 3 productions, the first of which was the 1956 Playhouse 90 broadcast of Rod Serling's play, Requiem for a Heavyweight. Ed was terrified of doing straight acting and kept goofing his lines in rehearsal. When the producers wanted to fire him, star Jack Palance said he would quit if they fired him. However, unbeknownst to Wynn, supporting player Ned Glass was his secret understudy in case something did happen before airtime. On live broadcast night, Wynn surprised everyone with his pitch-perfect performance and his quick ad-libs to cover his mistakes. A dramatization of what happened during the production was later staged as an April 1960 Westinghouse Desilu Playhouse episode. The Man in the Funny Suit, starring both senior and junior Wynns, with key figures involved in the original production, also portrayed themselves, including Rod Serling and director Ralph Nelson. Ed and his son also worked together in the Jose Ferrer film The Great Man, with Ed again proving his unexpected skills in drama. Requiem established Wynn as a serious dramatic actor who could easily hold his own with the best. His performance in The Diary of Anne Frank in 1959 received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. That same year, Wynn appeared on Serling's TV series The Twilight Zone in One for the Angels. Serling, a longtime admirer, had written that episode especially for him, and Wynn later, in 1963, starred in the season 5, episode 12 episode of 90 Years Without Slumbering. For the rest of his life, Wynn skillfully moved between comic and dramatic roles. He appeared in feature films, anthology television, endearing himself to a new generation of fans. Wynn was married 3 times, his first marriage to actress Hilda Keenan on September 5, 1914. They eventually divorced in May 13th of 1937 after 23 years of marriage. Together they had a son, actor Keenan Wynn. Wynn married his second wife, Frida Mears, on June 25th, 1937, but they got divorced only 2 years later, on December 12th, 1939. He married his third and final wife, Dorothy Elizabeth Nesbitt, on July 31st, 1946. She filed for divorce on February 1st, 1955, and it was finalized a month later. Wynn died on June 19th, 1966, in Beverly Hills, California, of esophageal cancer at the age of 79. He's interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. Wynn's bronze grave marker reads, Dear God, thanks, Ed Wynn. Murray Hamilton, born March 24th, 1923, died September 1st, 1986, was an American stage, screen, and television character actor who appeared in such acclaimed films as The Spirit of St. Louis, Anatomy of a Murder, The Hustler, The Graduate, The Way We Were, Jaws, and The Amityville Horror. Hamilton was born in Washington, North Carolina. He displayed an early interest in performing during his days at Washington High School just before America's entry into World War II. Bad hearing kept him from enlisting, so he moved to New York City as a 19-year-old to find a career on stage. In an early role, he performed on stage with Henry Fonda in the wartime story Mr. Roberts as a replacement for David Wayne, playing Ensign Pulver. In 1960, he was on stage again with Fonda in Critics' Choice. Howard Taubman of the New York Times called him properly obnoxious as the director. Hamilton was teamed once more with Fonda in 1968 in the drama The Boston Strangler. Hamilton's best known performance as Larry Vaughn, the mayor of Amity, in the Steven Spielberg thriller Jaws. Hamilton reprised the role in the sequel Jaws 2 in 1978. He had agreed to reprise the role again in Jaws the Revenge, but died in 1986 before production began. He was just 63 years old. Other notable big screen appearances included the critically acclaimed 1959 film Anatomy of a Murder with James Stewart, in which he played the bartender who gives testimony in the murder of Barney Quill. He also worked with Stewart in The Spirit of St. Louis and the FBI story. Hamilton complained in a newspaper article about being typecast, stating, After I was first cast as a heavy on The Untouchables, I couldn't even persuade them, the producers, that I could do something else. While comic roles were rare for Hamilton during his Hollywood career, he had one opposite Andy Griffith in the 1958 military comedy No Time for Sergeants, as well as an appearance in Steven Spielberg's raucous comedy 1941, released in 1979. He also appeared in a comic guest spot on Mama's Family in the second season episode Mama Cries Uncle as Uncle Roy. He was more often cast in dramatic works such as the science fiction drama Seconds, which starred Rock Hudson. In his most high-profile performances, Hamilton appeared with Paul Newman in The Hustler, playing Findley, a wealthy billiards player who gambles for high stakes, and with Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate as Mr. Robinson, husband of the seductress Mrs. Robinson. In 1975, Hamilton appeared again with Newman in The Drowning Pool. He also worked with Robert Redford in a pair of films, The Way We Were and Brubaker. In early 1982, he appeared as a judge presiding over an impromptu court case on an episode of Brett Maverick. For many years before and during his film career, Hamilton was a prominent dramatic stage actor, earning a Tony Award nomination for his role in the 1965 productions of Absence of a Cello. New York Times theater critic Carl Brooks Atkinson praised his work in the play Stockade, which was based on a part of the James Jones novel From Here to Eternity. Murray Hamilton is the ideal Pruitt, modest in manner, pleasant of voice. He has a steel-like spirit that brings Pruitt honestly to life. When the actor was suffering from cancer and found film roles harder to come by, his old co-star, George C. Scott, helped him out by getting a part in the made-for-television movie The Last Days of Patton, 1986. Hamilton died of lung cancer at the age of 63 and is interred at Oakdale Cemetery in his native Washington, North Carolina. He and his wife, Terry DeMarco Hamilton, had a son, David. Mr. Death notes that Bookman's father was born in Detroit and his mother was born in Syracuse. These are also the hometowns of Rod Serling's own respective father and mother. In consideration of Ed Wynn's advanced age, the nighttime scenes were filmed during the day with tarpaulins pulled over the set to give the illusion of night. At the beginning of the episode, one of the toys shown is a wind-up model of Robbie the Robot from the movie Forbidden Planet, a nod to MGM, where Forbidden Planet and Twilight Zone episodes were filmed. Dana Dillaway, Maggie, also starred in the third season episode I Sing the Body Electric. Mr. Bookman actually makes two great pitches. In the beginning, he successfully gets the angel of death to pass him by and give him one more chance. The greatest pitch involved the ultimate act of self sacrifice. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Mr. Death buys a number of items placed in the bag during the great pitch. However, when he and Lou walk away from the front sidewalk steps, Death does not take the bag, nor is the bag even seen in the area. This episode shows the softer side of the Twilight Zone after Where Is Everybody? Murray Hamilton is a cold, matter of fact Mr. Death, not one to fear, but very by the book. One thing that I did find fun is that during the pitch for the Angels, Murray Hamilton's hair gets a little more disheveled throughout the pitch. And when Lou is satisfied that his pitch saved the girl, he's happy to go along knowing that what he sacrificed for his friend was worthwhile. Another 4 out of 5. The only reason this was not a 5 is because the pitch works, but it's not as powerful as it could have been, I think.